me turn, there we go.
Okay, great.
And I'll get you a copy.
Thank you.
Well, we'll give it just another minute or two if there's a few more people getting on. If there's any county chairs that are on this meeting tonight, just as a reminder, when you have either yourself or someone start entering delegates into the Crackus system, you know, if you do have any bonus members in your county, please enter the bonus members. They'll be at-large members. Bonus members are allowed to be a delegate at the congressional district level and state level. If you have an elected official at the state or federal level in your county, don't bother entering them. At CD3 level, we'll enter in all the elected officials as at large.
I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that. I have no idea how to do that, but I think it's fairly self-explanatory when we get to that point, so. Dave, I don't know what order you want to go in. Last night we went in order of who jumped on first. So Russ was first, and then Sherri, and then Kristine. So it's up to you.
That's fine by me.
Okay.
Well, why don't we go ahead? It's a couple minutes after 7 and kick off. Thank you for joining this third and final Zoom meeting for CD3 candidates. We had the first and second Zoom meeting Monday and Tuesday night. It was all congressional candidates in that meeting. Tonight we have a mix of congressional, Board of Education, and CU Regent candidates. So welcome to all of you. So for tonight, the format is each candidate is allocated a total of 20 minutes. We ask each candidate keep their background introduction time to 10 minutes or less. That allows us to maximize the amount of time for questions from the audience. If you do get a question, we ask you to limit your response to 2 minutes, again, so we can maximize the amount of questions. And Alan, well, I should have introduced, I'm the chair of CD3. Christy Ruckus is the vice chair, and Alan Mays is the treasurer. And one other housekeeping note, it looks like the assembly times have now been finalized by the state GOP. CD3 assembly down in Pueblo at the fairgrounds will start at 2 p.m. Credentialing will start at 1 o'clock. And then, Christy, do you want to explain to people how they can raise their hand if they want to ask a question to a candidate?
Sure. So at the bottom of your screen, you have a toolbar there, and there's a reactions button right of center. If you just click on that, you'll see a raise hand. And so if you have questions for a candidate, just go ahead and raise your hand. If we could just make sure everybody stays muted while we have our candidate speaking, that would be super helpful.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start off now. It's 4 minutes after 7, and Russ Andrews, you are up running for Congress.
All right, Dave Peters, thank you very much. And thank all of you for tuning in. Christy, thanks for arranging all of this. And Alan, I appreciate it. And Christy, thank you for saving the very best for the very last.
Yes, sir.
I also want to thank all of my opponents who did participate in this forum. I think everyone has shown a real good grasp of the problems that are plaguing the Western Slope and CD3. Heard a lot of talk, but a precious few solutions to those problems. I'm a little bit different. I have 29 planks in my platform, all of which are designed to fix problems that plague our district. So I'd invite you to visit my website. It's Russ, the number 4, CD3.com, Russ for CD3.com. Before I get started, I feel compelled to point out the 1,000-pound gorilla that's been missing from our living rooms this week, and that's Jeff Hurd. Jeff claims to have had 3 conflicts now, to miss 3 forums in a row, and I don't think that's plays very well in my opinion. Most publications refer to Jeff as our presumptive nominee. I believe he's blown off these forums because he thinks he has your vote in his pocket. That might be the case, but in my opinion, he's taking you folks for granted. Jeff doesn't seem to think that he needs to share his policy ideas, if he has any policy ideas, with the rest of us. I think he believes he could skate through the nomination with his war chest, the fact that he has 5 children, that he's genuine, and that his wife escaped communism. I'm going to tell you folks, I will never, ever take you for granted. Never. I will always be available to talk to you, to listen to your needs and concerns, and to come up with solutions to fix your problems. So again, my name is Russ Andrews. I hail from the Roaring Fork Valley, where I've had a political and financial radio talk show for the last 15 years. I have a degree in marine engineering from New York Maritime College, which is a military school. My degree taught me how to design and operate mobile and stationary power plants. I'm of the belief that I've actually made more electricity than Al Gore has consumed. So, but who knows? Also, I was on the design team for the U.S. Naval Destroyer, the Arleigh Burke class, better known as the DDG-51. I helped with the propulsion and lubrication systems. I'm a financial advisor of 36 years. I've helped hundreds of people create generational wealth. And I have a firm understanding, thorough understanding of economics, which is a rare commodity in Washington, D.C. My wife is Lori. Many of you have met her. We've been married for 41 years. We moved to the Western Slope 30 years ago. I have actually lived in this district longer than any of my opponents. Lori and I have 3 children. They're all very successful in life, thank God. But something you need to know about our 3 kids is they all know how to reload their own ammunition. Lori and I own 19 firearms. And I'm telling you right now, one more promise I'm going to make to you. I will never vote in Congress, never once, to abrogate any of our Second Amendment rights. I am an engineer. We engineers use math and facts and logic to solve problems. There are currently 9 engineers in all of Congress. Not to worry though, because there are 175 lawyers. Nobody could tell me that sending the 176 lawyer to Congress is going to fix anything. So I'm asking you tonight to send this engineer to Congress. I make about 800 cold call dials a week, talking to constituents, their fundraising calls, delegate calls, you name it. And I find that the 3 issues that plague us the most in order are immigration, the economy, and protecting our water. So I have a 7-point plan on immigration that I think it's been pretty well thought out. First point is finish the wall, seal up the southern border to illegal immigration. The second point is take the drug dealers that are killing 110,000 American kids of military age every year, take those drug dealers and feed them to our new wolf population. And I'm only half kidding. Third point is national security tariffs. We know the 2 countries that are poisoning our kids. We know who they are. It's China and Mexico. I say we install massive 50% tariffs on all goods and services coming out of Mexico and China. I would exempt Mexican produce so that we can eat in the wintertime. I would double those tariffs every 3 months. At the end of a year, that would be 800% tariffs. And there's nobody on this call tonight that's going to spend $360,000 in a year and a half to buy a $40,000 car or truck assembled in Mexico. It would make this Mexico's problem, it would make it China's problem, and it would be solved quickly. The fourth point is we actually allow about 1.1 million legal immigrants into our country every year. I say that we expand that so that we're not called xenophobes, and we do it based on merit. Biden will have brought in 14 million illegals in his first, and let's pray to God, only term. They're unskilled, they're illiterate, amongst other things. I say that we expand legal immigration, but let's do it based on merit. Let's bring in doctors, no lawyers, doctors, nurses, carpenters, truck drivers, people who can immediately help our bottom line. It is estimated in some sources that Biden has spent in the first 3 years almost as much money on his illegal immigrants as Ronald Reagan spent in his first year budget back in 1981. I find that to be astounding. Obviously, the value of the dollar has changed, but that puts it in perspective. The fifth point is we need to change our asylum laws. These people need to apply for asylum in somebody else's country, not at our border. The sixth point is we need to defund sanctuary cities, and I mean every red nickel. If these people are going to flout federal laws, they need to forfeit federal funds. And seventh, as law enforcement comes into contact with Biden's illegals, they need to be deported. Every last one of them that law enforcement comes into contact with. This has been a massive middle finger to middle America. You and I live in middle America. We need to send a message to the triad that is the Chinese Communist Party, the American Democrat Party, and the Mexican government that we will never put up with this again. So that's where I stand on immigration. Water, Colorado certainly has a water problem. But I think most of Colorado's water problem, especially up here in the northern part of the state, is a California problem. 97% of the precipitation that lands in California flushes right out to sea. These people are not mature enough to provide for their own needs. The solution, I think, and I've talked to Club 20 and I've talked to the Heritage Foundation about this, they both love this idea, that we build federal reservoirs on federal land with federal dollars in California. We capture water there and we sell it to California. If we do that, and if we open up a certain number of desalination plants along the California coast, I worked in Saudi Arabia on a gunboat class that we sold to the Saudis back in the early 80s. And I almost ended up staying over there to work in one of their desalination plants because that's where they get all of their fresh water from. So I think a component of California's water needs to be desalinated, and that's going to be on them. But in any event, if we follow those two ideas, it would save 4 million acre feet of water.
2 minutes, Russ.
I'm sorry?
2 minutes.
Okay, it would save 4 million acre feet of water. That's enough water to grow 2 million acres of corn here in the upper basin. So that's what I think about our water. I know I had one more here. Oh, the economy, yeah. Might not get through all this. I am a financial advisor of 36 years. The economy is in shambles, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is our population has increased by 5% over the last 5 years. At the same time, federal spending has increased by 55%. Last year, the federal government spent $150 for every $100 of growth that were created. We went into debt by $252 for every $100 of growth that was created. This is unsustainable. That's the word our comrades on the left like to use when they're trying to graft us for money for their green energy projects, red energy projects. But we need to obviously rein in spending. I will get into this probably in further detail in a little bit, but I have ideas to cut welfare spending by 2% a year for 10 years. That would free up $300 billion to eliminate the Department of Indoctrination or Education, and to eliminate the Department of Red Energy. If we do all of it, by the way, that's just energy. If we do all of that, we will reduce spending by $600 billion, and that would go a long way to fixing what's hurting us. So go ahead. I'm ready to answer questions. Bring it on.
Does
Thank you,
anybody
Russ.
have, sorry, Alan, does anyone have a question for Russ? Raise your hand. Kevin, go ahead.
Russ, explain your policy on voter integrity.
Yeah, pretty simple, Kevin. In a republic, it is necessary in a republic, I believe, that the losers of elections have to believe they lost fairly and squarely. In 2000, the Democrats thought we stole that election. We didn't. 2020, we think that the Democrats stole that election. They probably did. The point is, I think that we need to go back to the future. I am all for paper ballots and hand counts. And I say hand counts because in Venezuela's election, Hugo Chavez's last election in Venezuela, every single voting machine had the exact same tally. I could tell you as an engineer, that is statistically impossible, which means that the machines can be manipulated. Are they being manipulated? I don't know. But if the potential exists, we need to eliminate it.
Okay, thanks, Russ. Lynetta.
Hi, Lynetta.
Hi, Russ. How are you this evening?
Doing great.
So I'm sure you've heard about the monument and the Dolores River and NCA.
Right.
How do you feel about that? And any ideas on how we can prevent
Yeah,
that?
it's just another land grab by the government. I mean, I'm always against things like that. Nobody could tell me that the people in Washington, D.C. and Arlington, Virginia know what needs to be done with land in Colorado or Utah any better than the people that live in Colorado and Utah. That's what Democrats do. They steal land. I would certainly be opposed to it if I were in Congress. I'd battle tooth and nail to prevent it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Russ?
Come on, guys, bring it on.
Dave, you're on mute. If you have a question, do you have a question? Hey, hang on a
Russ,
second.
I've got a question for you.
Shoot.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
So on the issue of water on the western slope, water is a very complex issue. I'm on a water conservation board. Most of our water district boards are taxing authorities, but the amount of money they bring in is not all that significant versus the amount of infrastructure they need. How would you tackle getting federal dollars directed more towards water projects in Western Colorado, knowing you really need some type of expert help to push stuff through?
Yeah. One of the reasons I entered this race, Dave, was because in 2022, we brought home to this district 1.1 billion fewer of our tax dollars, 1.1 billion fewer than the average district in the state. I think that needs to be fixed. Though that money that we didn't bring home in 2022, it's not like it didn't get spent. It got spent in New York City, in Chicago, San Francisco, and LA. We desperately need water. We need federal dollars. We need to bring our tax dollars back home. And I again would battle tooth and nail to get that done. In terms of hiring experts, yeah, I mean, I'm not a water expert. I'm an engineer, so I'm a quick study. But I understand water is, again, one of the top 3 issues here in the district. I will do everything when I'm in Congress to battle to keep the water up here in the upper basin. And again, to restrict California, the lower basin takes 50% more water than what they're entitled to. So that's something I think that needs to end. And again, I gave you my solution for that. It's building federal reservoirs on federal land with federal dollars in California, and then selling the water that we keep back to them. But I would be there. I'm not going to downplay water. Water, I know, is a huge issue here. There's 39,000 cattle ranchers in the state, untold number of farms. I get it. We need water, and that'll be a top priority for me.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you, Russ. I'm going to reach into your financial expertise. I'm just curious if you are familiar with either the fair consumption tax or the flax tax.
Yeah, I
proposal.
am. I get them
Okay.
confused, but yeah, I am. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I am.
Okay, Doug.
Hey, Russ, thoughts on the Middle East? What's going on there with the craziness over there in Israel, and then, how it's being played out here in our country, especially on university campuses?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Doug. What I really want to talk about first, I guess, is China. China has 290,000 kids of their kids in our universities and college, and they spend between 15 and $20 billion per year affecting the curriculums in colleges and universities. And I've read numerous articles about how they do that. I believe that a lot of this DEI and this anti-Semitic nonsense And the woke business comes literally from China. So I'll answer your question, but the first thing that I would do is reduce over the period of 3 or 4 years, reduce Chinese enrollment in our colleges and universities by 90%, down to about $30,000. That would reduce the investment that China makes into our universities and colleges, but it would bring it down to about $2 billion. And I think we slowly see a lot of this woke nonsense and anti-Semitic rhetoric disappear. In terms of Israel and Iran, I understand Iran's our enemy. I get that loud and clear. I think that we should have already done things, maybe attack their drone factories. That would serve a double purpose. But we need to send a message to the Ayatollahs that we're not messing around. I mean, they understand one thing and one thing only, and that's power. I got to know Alan Dershowitz, of all people, a little bit this past summer. I had a very negative opinion of him when I first met him. He kind of won me over. He's not as bad as most of us think. And Alan once asked me, what are my thoughts on Israel? I've met with AIPAC and I've told them, if you elect me to Congress, I will be Israel's best ally in Congress. So that's where I am with that. I think that we need to give Israel, not give, but sell to Israel all the armament and weapons that they need to defend themselves.
Thank you.
Kevin, do you still have your hand up from your previous question? Okay, Christina, go ahead. It's okay.
Hi, one of the things that jumped out at me was you're wanting to flood the country with, yes, they may be legal immigrants, but they come here with their socialism and they take American jobs. So that's very concerning. And then you turn around and you say you don't want the Chinese in our higher ed. I went to Mizzou, there were a lot of Chinese, and Mizzou, they had a partnership, so that was one of the reasons. But it was just very, I just don't like the idea of flooding my country with Visa card holders or people that are going to come take American jobs.
Yeah, that's a good question, Christina. Currently, we allow about 1.13 million legal immigrants per year. Again, Biden will have brought in 14 million unskilled illegal immigrants. I'm not talking about, jumping it up to 5 million. I'm talking about slightly increasing it, and again, doing it based on merit. And the last, I think, 3 or 4 years, it must be 4 years, Native American jobs have gone down by 120,000 net total. While immigrant jobs have gone up by 2.77 million. That's because many Americans simply don't want to work. That's all there is to it. After every recession, we see fewer and fewer percentage of males willing to work. So we need people to come in and fill those jobs. We just do. If you remember after COVID, the supply chain issues we had were killing our businesses. They're still killing our businesses. I mean, I talk to restaurant owners all the time. They simply can't hire enough people. I talk to business owners. They simply can't hire enough skilled people. So I'm not talking about bringing in, 20, 50 million people to take our jobs. I'm talking about specific jobs that we need that Americans aren't filling. We have a medical crisis, a healthcare crisis in this country. We need doctors and nurses. That's all there is to it. My daughter is a dermatologist. She's a doctor. And we simply just are not minting enough doctors and nurses, for example. We don't have, well, we do now, but we didn't, a year and a half ago, we didn't have enough truck drivers. We don't have enough construction workers. So I say bring in those people as we need them. If we don't need them, don't bring them in. And again, we can't send the message out that we're xenophobes because we want to end illegal immigration at the southern border.
Right. Good, Russ. You're right on time. Thank you.
Right. Again, I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and definitely Sherri, Wright, and Kristine. I've heard both of them speak on several occasions. We have not endorsed them simply because I haven't had the time, but they are really, really great candidates, I think. So please lend your ear to them.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Russ.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thanks, Russ, and good luck in your campaign.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, with that little introduction, we're moving to Board of Education candidate Sherri Wright. and we'll turn it over to you, Sherri.
Thank you. And Russ, thank you for that endorsement. I really appreciate it. I think the most important thing for me to tell you right now is I'm very, very passionate about education. I have spent 40 years of my life in education. I have a master's degree in secondary education. I have taught for 20 years. I have been on the board, the school board for 20 years. I have been president, the whole 9 yards, secretary, treasurer, president, vice president. And I have also been on the vocational board, our VOTEC board, and I moved it from a technical board to a college, and from a college, I did a merger with PCC to benefit our students. I think the most important thing is that I believe in parental rights and charter schools, and I feel like they go hand in hand. You have to do the parents need to have a right to know what their child is being taught and where the best education is. I will fight for that completely. I have been on the CASB board for 12 years, and at different times I've been on it. And each time I have fought deeply for rural schools. I believe that rural schools are underfunded and are not heard. So I am going to do my best to make that heard in the State Board of Education. I realize that our board is basically Democrat ran, but when I was on the CASB board, it was Democrat ran too. And I do know how to fight, and I do know how to work the people. I just to let you know, when I was a director at Battle Rock Charter School, I raised their levels, their CMAS levels two bars in 1 year, my first year. And that was simply by engaging in parents and educators and students, letting them know what was the expected of it for the year. And then the parents knew why the kids were doing this and the importance of them being in school. And then last year, just before I went off our local board, we raised with the board and the superintendent working hand in hand, we were able to raise our students for our district 2 whole levels. So I believe deeply in the standards of education. I believe in accountability, but I believe that parents have a right to know what's going on and to where to go from there. I was board president of our local district, COVID hit. And it was a difficult time for me. And I have been, I was slammed pretty deeply. So I'm pretty tough. I don't have soft skin anymore. But I did put the kids back in the classroom. They missed, approximately a week and a half of school. And they went back into the classroom. We furnished masks for them, for teachers, for students. We hired extra help to keep everything sanitized and clean. But most importantly, our students learned. Our students were not behind like all the other kids. So I felt like that was the right decision. Of course, it was not in some of the community's eyes because they wanted us to keep the schools shut down. But I just felt like that was important. We have, as I said, the rural schools are underfunded and underrepresented. And I was on CASB. While seeing that and fighting with that, I think, I believe that we need a rural organization, somewhat like CASB, that represents rural schools, that do the lobbying for them, that is there and helping them to see where they can go, where their rights are, and to help get the funding that they need, because we do need more funding. We don't have the money to get teachers to do teacher housing. When I was growing up, we called them teacher reachers, but we don't have that money anymore. And I think that we need to start fighting for that. For our lower income kids, we do not have the resources that cities have. So we need some extra help. and I am going to fight for it. I pretty well let you know, I apologize that I do not have a picture up. I've been troubleshooting my camera, but somehow it's still not working. But I believe that if you see something that's not working, step up and change it. And that's what I'm willing to do. And I have found that where you're needed, you step in. Right now, I am teaching a senior high school AP class in English because we had a teacher leave and there was no one for it. Critical need, I stepped in. Am I enjoying it? I'm loving it because I am a retired teacher. Am I going to do it next year? Oh, no. I'm a retired teacher. But I will do what needs to be done because I believe that education and our students are the very best. So you will hear my motto a lot. It's our students, our future. So are there any questions?
I actually have a quick question to Sherri. Thank you. With all of the bad legislation that's coming out of the supermajority in the House right now, one of these bills, and there are multiple like it, but most recently HB 241071, that's that name change to conform with gender identity, and that'll hold teachers responsible and subject to discrimination lawsuits and discrimination charges if they do not recognize a student as a name or a gender that they want to be recognized as without parental consent or even knowledge. Would you advocate for the teachers in this situation and stand up for them if that bill takes effect and you know, basically vilifies our teachers for not playing the imagination game with students?
I am definitely for the teachers. In fact, I was visiting with a lobbyist today, and he told me that it was passed. It's going to the Senate and will probably pass Monday. What he told me was that they did remove it to where they showed that what if a substitute came in and did not know that this child's name had been changed because of a bad records or something. And so we're saying no. We believe that parents have the right to know what their kids are choosing and that teachers should not be held responsible because of that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Christina, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Did I hear you right? That you furnished masks? So you, in my opinion, you should have fought against that. That wasn't a real mandate. And our students, the children were harmed wearing masks. Did you just say that you furnished masks?
I said we furnished masks, but I did not say they were required to wear them. It was an option. It was optional for students to wear them if parents chose to. It was optional for teachers to wear them if they chose to, but it was not a mandate. We highly recommended that they did not wear them, but they were there if they did.
So you did fight against it then?
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely we fought against it. But
Okay, thank
we
you.
did have to honor parents also.
Thank you.
Okay, Miss Lynetta.
Hey, Miss Sherri, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you, Lynetta?
I'm good. How do you feel about school choice? Since you're on the State Board of Education, what are your feelings on school choice?
I believe that a parent has the right to put their child in the school that they want. It doesn't matter if it's across town, if it's a charter school or a religious school. Parents have that right.
Thank you.
Okay, Valerie.
Yes, good evening, Sherri. This is Valerie Mays with a question. As a parent who saw the deficiencies in most of our public schools and chose an alternative years ago, as you and many others sat on district boards, and you did not speak out against increasing irresponsible school curriculums, how can you assure me that now you will be an effective and good voicing good change for the State Board of Education, I would remind you that as board president of RE1, you hired a totally inappropriate superintendent. Let's talk accountability. As a parent, I have listened to 30+ years of how much more money districts need with little accountability. So please elaborate.
I'll be more than happy to, if you want to talk about our superintendents. When I came on the board, our superintendent lasted another 5 years, and then he retired. I was on the board that hired the next superintendent. He was great the first 2 years, and after that, he started passing the buck. And when I was off the board, he was relieved of duty. Then the board at that time stepped in and hired another superintendent, and I did fight very, very hard with him. And then when he found another job, he moved on. And I was on a Democrat board then. I was not president. I was not holding an office. I was a board director. And they chose to put another person in as a superintendent. That person lasted 5 years. I was on the board and accepted her resignation when she resigned. I was very gladly accepted it and shook her hand and said, thank you. The next one was on me. It was a mistake. It was a split vote. And that person only lasted less than 6 months. And we now have a new superintendent, and he's doing a phenomenal job. Did I answer your question, or did I leave something out?
Well, I think you did. We constantly as taxpayers are asked to pay for more and more money for our schools. And I believe in good schools, Sherri. I'd be right there with you. I just find it hard to believe that after so many years on the school board, and you did not speak up against the mask mandate, and our schools were closed, and the kids were forced to wear masks, and parents have not been informed of how bad this school district is. As a matter of fact, it was under state supervision for the elementaries.
I'm sorry, Valerie, we were interrupted there. I will respectfully disagree with you. We did speak up against masks. Our schools were closed approximately a week and a half, and that was because the superintendent did it without the board's knowledge. And the superintendent did try to do a mask mandate. The board fought it very much and said no. We did furnish masks so that parents could choose if they opted to have their child wear a mask. They could. Again, I'm for parent choice. Now then, we never did mandate masks. So did the kids wear masks? A lot of them did. The majority of them did. But as the news came out and no more knowledge came out, very few were wearing them by the end. But we did keep the schools very sanitary. As far as money, every school in our district was built from the late 40s to the mid 50s, except for the high school, and it takes money for upkeep.
Okay, thank you, Sherri. Lisa, go ahead.
Hi. So I want to start off. I am a mother of a senior in high school this year, so we've gone through the last 4 years of my son's roughest school participation with getting through COVID and then all the woke stuff. My daughter graduated and did college during all of this. One of my concerns is that we've dealt with, and I've combated it quite well myself, but there's a lot of parents who haven't been able to, is the school overreach, them providing all of the students with computers that the schools can turn on at any point in time that they want in the family's home. They fought with me and fought with me and fought with me. I refused to have one. My son went out and got a job and bought his own computer, and I have to provide his internet because his computer cannot connect to the school's internet for more than 3 minutes at a time. So I'd like to see some changes there, because it's unacceptable when these schools can just barge into everybody's home and invade their privacy and say, well, these kids have to have these computers, so we're allowed to do this. I would like to see some change there. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on that and what kind of changes you plan to implement regarding that.
Okay, now then, I'm off the school board. Understand that. But I was not made aware that your kids could only access the internet for 3 minutes. I take my computer to school, my personal computer, and I have complete access all day. So I don't know why his is only, or hers is only for 3 minutes. And to tell you about the COVID stuff, my oldest granddaughter graduated from college. It was right in the middle of it, and she was not able to walk. It broke our hearts. She graduated Dean's List, dual majors, and she did it in 3 years. Her little sister graduated from high school the same year. And that was the reason I stayed on the board. I was ready to retire, and I'm going, no, I want to hand her her diploma, masks, and I didn't even she didn't get to walk across the stage. She got to walk across the parking lot. So I agree with you. I hated COVID. But the computer stuff, I do not know, and I would highly recommend that you go and talk to the superintendent.
Oh, and I know I've talked to a bunch of people here. At this point, he's graduating in 3 months. I just provide his internet. The second issue that I've been dealing with within the school system here, just to bring this up really quick, is, we had an issue with my son and his cell phone last year. He wasn't doing anything that he shouldn't have been doing. He was ordering cards for a class that they put him in. And there was a fight between him and a teacher. They wrestled over it. They tried to suspend my son. And I had to come back at him and say, well, if you suspend my son, then I'm going to press charges on your teacher for assault on a minor. We won that. And then they turned around and tried to tell the Constitution is a matter of an opinion. So we need to address this with the people in charge at these schools.
I agree with you 100%. We have a new principal in the school. And the board direction has always been that you do not touch a student. So that teacher was in the wrong. I have kids in there that use a cell phone. Only one time if I had to ask them to hand it to me, and they looked at me and they said, no, we will put it away. Great, put it away. I do not think that the battle of the cell phones is worth it if the child's doing their work. In fact, in my class, the kids use their cell phones for research. So cell phones is kind of a really touchy subject right now.
Okay, thank you. Lynetta?
I basically have a comment. We just need to remember that schools are local control. So as a state school board member, and we went through this with Stephen Varela as well, is that his job is policy. So Sherri is appointed to the board. She will be working on policy, which she is, I've worked with her for, 8 years on policies through CASB. So that is, she has that skill. I think we're just kind of getting off a track here.
Okay.
So I would like to ask Sherri.
2 minutes.
I would like to ask Sherri about her policy skills and about how she would address some of these issues through policies, and how she would work with that board, because it is, I think there's 2 Republicans and 4 Democrats or something like that. I can't remember the exact number.
It's a 9-person board. So there's 5 Democrats and if I make it 4 Republicans, right now 4 Republicans. I have done policy since I've been on the board. As Lynetta said, we've written policies together for CASB. I will always be on the conservative side of policies. And to do that, you have to work with other people. If there's that many people that are Democrats on the board, I will do my level best to work with them, to talk to them, and to compromise with them as long as it is not giving in to something that I believe against. I will fight for that. I have fought for years for kids, and I will continue to do so. I do not believe that we need to do policies for kids that are not healthy for them. And if you want to talk curriculum, the state board does appoint curriculum and design that, but they give the schools options on what curriculum they choose. They give them a list of different things. It has to meet certain standards, but
10
you
seconds,
have
Sherri.
oh, thank you. Do I have more time?
I think you're out of time.
Okay, thank you.
Sherri,
Sherri, thank you so much for joining us tonight and stepping up to the plate to run for Board of Education. You know, and I wish you the best on your campaign, and I think that you'll win it, is my opinion.
and
Thank you.
real quick, Miss Sherri, if you have a website, you want to give that real quick before we move on?
I'm in the process of designing it now, so I will be in Pueblo next week and I will have it then.
Okay,
And I will send it out, okay?
great, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the position of CU Regent. So I will turn it over to Kristine.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, David and Christy, for putting this on. I appreciate the time. I'm Kristine Sposato, and I'm a candidate for the University of Colorado Board of Regents for the 3rd Congressional District. So I'm here tonight to tell you a little bit about myself and to ask for your support, the support of the delegates at the State Assembly on April 6th. I've been in higher education administration for 20 years. 15 of those have been at the University of Colorado. I currently live in Cedar Edge with my husband and my 2 dogs. Since I retired from the university, I actually have never left higher education, at least in my mind and my work. I haven't worked at a university per se, but I have had entrepreneurial endeavors ongoing since I retired. I've published a book called Student Voices Silenced, which highlights the struggle and biases that are faced by conservative students in higher education today. I've created and developed a mobile app for conservative students in college. And I also host a podcast called Conservative Voices Silenced. So you can see a theme here. I'm dedicated to higher education and students, and also, you know, the plight of what now conservatives face as being silenced. People don't want to hear what we have to say. And so I have dedicated my time and my life to that, pretty much every waking hour. And so I'm not pursuing this seat for because someday I want to, you know, run for another political office, or because I'm bored in my retirement. I'm doing this because I am dedicated to higher education. I love higher education and I love students. And so I was approached to run for this. I spent a long time thinking about it. And to me, it seems like a great fit because I already am immersed in this world. So to give you a little idea of my political background and to help you see behind the scenes what's going on in colleges and how critical it is that we have conservatives at the table, at the decision-making table, I'm going to share with you just a brief section of my book. And in this section, I am telling about a meeting that I was in with mid to upper level administrators, and an assistant vice chancellor stood up to speak in this meeting. And this really happened. She took the lead, stood up, and started ranting about how upset she was. Oh, by the way, and this is in 2017, after President Trump was elected. She had spent the weekend grieving over the president of the United States. He made her so angry that he had even destroyed her entire semester. She shouted, "I'm ashamed to be an American." In tears and out of control, she waved her arms in the air, continuing on and growling. It's unbelievable that so many idiotic, ignorant people could possibly have voted for that man. Before that day, I had never considered myself a conservative. I'd been a moderate my entire life. I believed that my civic duty was not to identify with a party or a side, but to vote consistently in every election based on my values, on the economic status at the time, the needs of my school district, my city, my county, my state, and my country. I voted Republican. I voted Democrat. That day, that moment, I knew we were in a war and I had to pick a side. I chose with my heart, mind, values, and conscience. That day I became a conservative and allied with the party, started researching conservative issues, and began watching a new TV channel for my news. In writing this book, I conducted countless hours of research and discovered that I am not alone. I've spoken to numerous higher education professionals who feel the same way. We duck under the radar when we know that our tenure is on the line. Our promotions, faculty recognition, or awards are all compromised because of our political views. Survival tells us to sit down and be quiet. That's why I'm doing this, because higher education has become a place of indoctrination. My father used to tell me that, you know, they don't tell you what to think, they teach you how to think. Well, that is completely changed and completely reversed now. I love higher education. I love students. Some of the reasons that I also am running things that I think need to be addressed. One is referred to as the enrollment cliff. In 2008, when we went through the recession, the birth rate dropped. So we're at the end of that birth rate. So the students that would be graduating from high school and entering college, that year is coming up in 2025. So the whole industry of higher education is in a panic because they are anticipating this huge drop in enrollment, which of course then is a drop in revenue. Colorado is anticipating an over 8% drop in enrollment. And then now layer that with the public now perceiving higher education as not being a great value, not something that they really want to invest in anymore. They know that tuition costs are out the roof. They know that students are in a bind with their student loans. They're not seeing the return on investment. And so a lot of parents and students are really thinking about, is this the best idea for us? Are we really going to be that much farther ahead if we proceed and pursue higher education? The other thing that has really come to light is the political and cultural shift that everyone is aware of, that students are exposed to in higher education. I call it indoctrination, but we've all seen it on TV. I've seen it firsthand. I know it happens. It's the kind of thing that I've talked about in this book. This story just completely illustrates the disrespect, disregard, and this actual like loathing of conservative people. And the people that she talked about in this book, the idiots, are the people who pay the tuition. They're the parents, they're the students. We also need support in strategic planning, fiscal responsibility. And then also planning for the dreamers, which are the illegal immigrants that are flooding now across our borders. They're called dreamers. And that means that they can enter through federal programs. They can enter our colleges and universities. They can apply through FAFSA, which is the federal financial aid process. And all they need is a social security number. Their parents don't need one, but they can apply for federal financial aid with a social security number, and that is awarded based on need. So what that means to our constituents in the 3rd Congressional District is that our students will be vying for and competing for financial aid with these students that are coming in through the border, and it is going to compromise our own students. So that's in a nutshell what I have to say. Well, no, I have more to say, but I only have a limited amount of time. So that's it. And again, I want to thank everyone who has supported me getting here. Thank you. Thank you. And if you'd like more information, I do have a website, and it is Kristine4Regent.com. And I guess now I can take questions.
Perfect. That was perfect, Kristine.
Thanks, Kristine. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hey, so you just mentioned the FAFSA, so we're actually currently going through that because my son, like I said earlier, is graduating in 3 months, and his plan is to go to pre-med. I know that there's a lot of problems with the FAFSA right now. It's taking an extremely long amount of time, and a lot of colleges are struggling trying to figure out what to do with some of their students, like the Mesa up in Grand Junction. They keep, contacting us and saying they have all these programs that they're implementing. Do you think that that is a result of these dreamers all coming in? Would that be something that could be holding up the FAFSA for all of the rest of our kids?
I'm not positive about that, but my hunch is that part of it could be that. I see that the dreamers and that these immigrants are going to flood in the upcoming years. As the children that we see crossing the border are growing up, they're going through K-12 now. And so as they start getting out of K-12, and then they'll be entering university in the next few years.
Lynetta, you're on mute, hun.
I didn't hear you call my name, so sorry.
Hi.
Hi, Kristine. My name's Lynetta.
Hi, Lynetta.
My concern with the CU Regent, they deal with priorities for the colleges and universities, and they also deal with setting tuition.
Yep.
And in my family, our children went to Texas because they could go to 4 years of college in Texas compared to 1 year in Colorado, and that is in-state tuition.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a huge concern about that also on applications, because well, you can see I'm white, and there was no help for my children out there.
Mm-hmm.
None whatsoever, because they were discriminated against on those college applications.
Lynetta, I completely agree. Whether it's hiring and tenure practices and procedures or admissions, it needs to shift back to instead of diversity, equity, and inclusion standards, it should go back to merit, fairness, and equality. And students should be admitted based upon the merit and their own hard work. I watched this shift happening over time. I saw the quality of students shifting over time, and it didn't have anything to do with race or someone's skin color. I saw students of all races who were hard workers, who were motivated, do very, very well. And then I saw students that came in that were handed their admission that didn't work that hard and didn't really appreciate the opportunity. So, I definitely agree with you. That has to shift back. Tuition, university has itself in a pickle. And again, being there and watching the money that they spend and how they spend it, they have to keep raising the tuition dollars to cover their expenses. And instead of it being the other way around, where it's driven by students and demand, what happened was it was driven by their budget, and then they would hire more admissions counselors to go out and recruit students to fill the pipeline and pay the tuition. So with this enrollment cliff and all these other issues socially that are going on, that people are questioning what is going on in higher education, I think they have got to adjust the tuition rates, and it has to come back into line with reality.
Well, and I think a lot of that is a lot of parents, especially conservative parents, are looking at that education and what they're being taught and the wokeism. And the other colleges are seeing this, and they're recruiting our best students out of Colorado.
Yep.
My daughter went full ride in Texas. So, and my son was a full ride in North Dakota too. So they're recruiting our best students out of Colorado. We've got to stop that.
Yes. And I completely agree. And that's why I think it's so critical to have strong conservatives at the table speaking about these issues and explaining to them why we have to change and why we have to make a shift. The state university, the University of Colorado, the reason it was created was to serve our students, the students in the state of Colorado. Colorado isn't unique in this. A lot of other state system colleges are out of control and have done the same thing. And I think we need to reel that back and look at our priorities again, for sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks,
Thank you.
Lynetta.
Hey, Angie in the chat would like to know the name of your book and see if you could hold a copy of it up for her one more time.
I'd be happy to. It's called Student Voices Silenced. You can get it on Amazon. And it really is the behind the scenes stories of what goes on in higher education. And for parents, it gives you practical advice of how you can prepare your students for these liberal campuses. Okay,
Great. Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kristine. This was also a question maybe for Sherri too, but I'm forward thinking and I'm very optimistic. I'm optimistic for you and getting on the board with the regents. Being forward thinking, there's thought about the federal Department of Education being eliminated next year or shortly thereafter. And have you given thought to what that means to the Colorado State if that happens? Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. In my experience, universities are held to higher education standards and are not influenced by the federal. I don't think the federal Department of Education. There are other entities that come in and can't think of the word that give us the, they look at the standards, they look at the curriculum, and then they give us starts with an A, accreditation. Thank you. So, but I don't think it comes out of that federal agency. I'll be wrong, but I'm not aware.
Thank you.
Okay, Christina, go ahead.
I just thought that was an interesting comment, and I don't know if you could, what you could do at that position. But I had applied to CU Boulder. I got accepted, and they refused to give me a GA, a tuition waiver. So I ended up going to Mizzou, because they gave me a tuition waiver, and that meant I'm a 5th generation Colorado, and I had to pack up and move all the way to Missouri when I could have just went to Boulder. And I was denied a PhD, even though I did really, really good on my interview. And I noticed that they bring in a lot of foreigners for a Colorado and Missouri 2 PhD. So I don't know if you can suggest that like Coloradoans should come first, or even applying. I've applied to CU Boulder probably 50 times. I get interviews and I see who they hire, and they're always transplants. So I don't really understand why Colorado, especially 5th generation, I wouldn't get first pick or something. Thank you.
So you have 30 seconds there, Kristine, if you can.
Yeah, 30 seconds, I say follow the money. It's really unfortunate, but they a lot of times make their decisions based on where they're going to get the most money. And out of state and foreign tuition brings in more money than in-state tuition. If I have 10 more seconds. We used to get a report every week from admissions on what admissions enrollment looked like. And it was broken down from international students, out-of-state students, in-state and then what the tuition was and the line items went across. And that's how, we developed our budgets and knew how much money we had coming in. And they were actively recruiting the international students and out-of-state students to get more tuition dollars.
Well, that makes sense. Like I said, Mizzou has a partnership for 50 years with China. So thank you for your answer.
Okay, well, thank you, Kristine, and wish you the best of luck on your campaign. We'll look forward to seeing you on Friday, April 5th at the CD3 assembly.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm going to I thank all the candidates and everyone that listened in on the candidates tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to Kristine, because she'll probably tell you that she's recorded these and about what she'll do with the recordings if you or others want to view the Zoom meetings.
Yes, sir. So I have recorded them. I will get the copies to Dave and Alan as well, and then we will get those out to the respective candidates that we contacted to participate. I want to thank all of the candidates. I want to thank all of the folks that jumped on with us. Thank you for all the thoughtful questions. And I did put my email address in the chat. If somebody would like copies of these, please don't hesitate. I've got a few emails already, but it's cruckus, RUCKUS, at protonmail.com. It is in the chat. And if you want copies, I will be more than happy to send the copies to you.
Okay, thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.